compliance purposes. However, on our website, one of the very first videos will go through what we're going to go through today. I'm just going to mute everyone. And do that and start record, and then I can talk to you some more.
Recording in progress.
Okay, well, good, very early morning, normal morning, daytime, evening, or ridiculously late at night, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and spend some time with us. We are doing this at Wolverine's invitation tonight. He said there are a lot of people who are interested in the trusts, and tonight we are doing an introduction to trusts. So I recognise many of you who come along to our Q&A calls, and so you'll probably know a few more things, but it certainly doesn't matter. Does no harm whatsoever to revisit the basics, because the more you know about the basics, the stronger foundation you have moving forward. So tonight we're going to be doing a presentation. Doug and I are basically we're Sagacious Asset Protection, but we do also have people who work with us behind the scenes. And so I'm going to hand over to Doug. We'll start the presentation, and at the end of it, we're going to open up for question and answer. So you'll be able to join in at that time. So if you think of anything through the presentation, just write it down. So Doug, thank you so much, and over to you.
Thank you, Trish, and good evening, everybody. Now, my first question is, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can, thank you.
Is it just a blank screen?
It is now.
Okay.
Oh, I thought this was 10 questions. I was getting geared up for it.
Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. And as Trish indicated, tonight we're going to be introducing trusts. Look, many people have heard about trusts. But for most, we don't know much at all. The understanding of trusts is usually left to people such as solicitors, accountants, wealth managers, etc. But as many of you know, that's all changing. But first, a disclaimer. So the material shared in the presentation is for information purposes only, must not be taken as personal advice. However, due to the extensive nature of information relating to trust, what we share in the presentation is an overview and must not be construed as being complete or entire. Trusts are not for everybody, so it's important that you determine what kind of trust, if any, best suits your personal requirements and financial objectives. So before we explore the concept of using a trust for the protection of all your property, real property and other assets and increasing your wealth, let's examine what a trust looks like. So what is a trust? I'm sure that most people are familiar with the term, but what exactly is it? So trusts are created by a settlor under the law of equity. The settlor can be, and usually is, a natural person, but the settlor could also be another trust or entity, contrary to what many people believe. A trust is not a separate legal entity. It's a lawful relationship between two or more parties, known as the trustees and the beneficiaries. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit more soon. The rules and requirements of the relationship are detailed in the trust deed and are also governed by common law and or statute law, depending upon the kind of trust that it is. And there are two categories of trusts. They are revocable and irrevocable. So there are a couple of terms that maybe you should write down because they are important that you understand what they mean. So revocable trusts. They are a fiduciary relationship created during the settler's lifetime. The trustees are responsible for managing what the settlor places in the trust for the benefit of the eventual beneficiary, or if there's more than one, the beneficiaries. So in simple terms, the settlor can revoke or amend the trust as they see fit. A revocable trust may also provide the trustees with the discretion to make such changes. And because it is revocable, a court may have the power and authority to revoke the trust.
On the other hand, we've got irrevocable trusts, and that's what we're talking to you about tonight. Now, an irrevocable trust can't be revoked by the settlor, and that distinction is really important. And you can read what's on the screen. I'm just going to tell you a little bit different because this is where it becomes important at the end of your life. Because with a revocable trust, everything you've done through your life is sold up and distributed to the beneficiaries. The trust is wound up and that's it, all done and dusted. But with an irrevocable trust, when you die, the assets pass to your beneficiaries seamlessly and continue on for the next generation. So it's a very important distinction. And even though the trust can't be revoked by the settlor, it doesn't mean that the trust can't be ended for certain reasons in the future. But the settlor can modify the trust deed for clarification or for the efficient performance of the trust. So the trustees have control over the trust, they have legal title, and they must act according to all the provisions of the trust deed. So in that trust deed, there is no mention of revocation rights for any party in the trust deed. So when choosing the right type of trust is also important. So there are different types of trusts, quite a few different types, and they each have their own purpose and reason for existence. And it's therefore important that you choose the right type of trust for your particular circumstances. Now, so if you have property or real property or other assets of any nature that you want to leave in perpetuity or as a legacy, or simply ensure that they're totally kept safe, then the ultimate instrument, as far as we're concerned, is the Premier Trust. Now, it is a common law, private, irrevocable trust, which is exclusive to us. Now, the common law sits above statutory law, not below it, not off to the side. It sits above statutory law. Now, the Premier Trust, it's about understanding the simplicity and the value of the Premier Trust. And that's what will give you confidence moving forward, because we know that this is, so foreign for everybody. It's like a new language. So is there a learning curve? Yes, but you will get the hang of it quite quickly. And the most important component of any trust is the trust deed, and it sets out the requirements for operating the trust. So with your Premier Trust, we've done all the hard work for you. We've designed the trust deed and made it so that it is simple, straightforward language, which is easy to understand.
So if you think of the Premier Trust as a vault, and most people understand the process of what a vault is. For example, if you own real estate, it's something that you can put into the vault. If you own motor vehicles or vehicles of any type, you can place them in the vault. Cash of any denomination, boats and ships, antique furniture, works of art, cryptocurrencies, and digital currencies, precious metals such as gold, silver, platinum, and these days even copper, aircraft of any type or nature. With a common law irrevocable trust, the vault can only be opened from the inside. So common law private irrevocable trusts are created in the private realm and are not registered anywhere. Now there's a little asterisk. So when you see the little asterisk, it says, well, it might not be entirely correct for every situation, because there will be times when you are dealing in the statutory world that you will need to register the trust as the owner of real property for bank accounts, etc. But we keep that to an absolute minimum. The Premier Trust provides you with what we believe is the very best trust that delivers.
One of the most important things coming up to us is having privacy and anonymity. And the Premier Trust gives you a tremendous degree of privacy because it is created by private contract. So it exists in the private realm and it's privately administered. We don't farm things out. This is you and your trustees looking after the running of your empire, whatever that looks like. And of course, you can engage people to assist you. But it's not required to apply to any government or to any agency or authority or permission to exist or function. So the trust contract doesn't need to be approved by or filed with any governmental agency. It's not a public document. So no government agency has the authority or power to require the disclosure of the name of the person who created the trust, the trustees' names, or the beneficiaries. So if privacy is important to you, the Premier Trust is ideal.
Another important consideration is asset protection. So no creditor claims, liens, levies or judgments against you in your name can now reach what you placed into the trust, because in simple terms, they're no longer yours. They are not in your name or under your control. The trust ownership protects the trust assets from seizure for any act or omission that you may be responsible for, except where there is a valid claim, such as a pre-existing mortgage or lien against something that you place into the trust, or some other action that is being taken against you and the property. So fraudulent transfers can be set aside. So this means there cannot be any reasonable, anticipated or contemplated legal claim against any of the holdings that you place into the trust, or any other action that is likely to be taken against you. So you do it with clean hands.
So laws on trusts provide more security for trusts than laws for people provide for people. Common law trusts provide a safety element in all transactions, as only the trustee or the executive manager is authorised to conduct financial transactions on behalf of the trust. The Premier Trust adds an additional level of security in relation to transactions to give you peace of mind.
Generational longevity. Discretional trusts come to an end on their vesting date, and that's usually on the death of the settlor or at a nominated time, usually 80 years or sooner. The Premier Trust is designed to create a trust that provides protection for all the holdings in the trust for generations to come, with the ability to extend the trust's vesting date for another period of, say, 80 years. So what's really important is that you cannot have your wishes upon your death challenged or contested or changed by your heirs, as is often the case that we hear about in the situation of a will. It can pass the property and assets of the trust to your heirs in complete secrecy through beneficial units. A common law trust never dies to the extent that on the death of the settlor or a vesting date, so it doesn't trigger estate taxes because it is seen as a pass-through entity which applies to all the holdings within the trust.
So another important thing about the trust is that it's flexible and it's simple. They're actually quite easy to create, fund and administer because record keeping is private. We don't use accountants, we don't use online bookkeeping packages. We actually use a bookkeeper or you and an Excel spreadsheet. And that keeps it very private and simple and easily learned because it's money in, money out equals the equity of the trust. And a trust can own property, real property, assets, insurance policies. It can run most businesses in any location in the world that English common law is recognised, which is in most countries of the civilised world.
Now, there's several parties to a trust. They are the settlor, the trustees, the beneficiaries, the executive manager and a protector. And we're going to go through each of those parties, so I'll give you a basic understanding of what their role is within the trust. So the settlor. The settlor is the person who creates the trust by using a trust declaration specifically detailed within the trust deed. They appoint the first trustee and relinquish ownership of the items that they place into the trust. So all the items that we place into a trust, we call them holdings because that's what the trust does. It holds everything. They may take on the role of executive manager. So it's a case of hat swapping. So they were the settlor, and in most cases, they will be appointed as the executive manager by the trustees. They may appoint a protector, and we'll talk a little bit more about a protector in a minute. They may be a beneficiary of the trust, which is common with many types of trusts. But they cannot be a trustee, ever. Now, the trustees. The minimum number of trustees required for a common law irrevocable trust is 2. The first trustee accepts their appointment and in turn appoints the second trustee. Now, the first trustee cannot be related to the settlor by blood, marriage, adoption, or employment. And that's a fairly broad spectrum. So whatever you do, don't try and circumnavigate it by trying to be a little bit clever. Keep it in mind. And the reason for that is that the first trustee is known as an adverse trustee under common law. And that is important to keep that understanding in place. The two trustees form the Board of Trustees, and they are responsible for the administration and management of the trust as detailed within the trustee for the sole benefit of the beneficiaries.
So beneficiaries, everyone wants to be a beneficiary. So that can be a natural person, a company, a trust, or another entity named in the trust originally or at a later date. Now, there always must be at least one beneficiary, but before you go putting all sorts of different things in, there are certain implications to each type that you put in there down the track and the way that the trust works. So beneficiaries may have an entitlement to trust income or capital, and that's set out in the trust deed. Or they may acquire an entitlement because the Board of Trustees exercises a discretion to pay them income or capital. So unlike many statutory trusts, distributions to the beneficiaries can be made at any time and they don't have to be made annually. So the Premier Trust, when we create the trust, we take off the settlor's hat and we put on the hat of the executive manager. So the executive manager is usually the settlor because the settlor doesn't have anything more to do in the trust, but we know that you've got all these things in your mind, all these projects, everything happening. So we make you the executive manager. You are usually a signatory on the bank accounts. You participate in the day-to-day administration of the affairs of the trust as authorised by the Board of Trustees. You can appoint or remove a protector, and if the executive manager was the settlor, they cannot be a trustee. So the Premier Trust Protector, and this is something that you may need in the future, but up until this point in time, for as long as we've been doing this, nobody's ever had to have a protector. Now, a trust protector is somebody who is appointed to exercise one or more powers affecting the administration and management of a trust. Now, that person cannot be related to any of the stakeholders of the trust. They can't be related to the settlor or to a beneficiary or to a trustee or an executive manager, because usually that's the settlor to begin with. And so this is to make sure that the trustees are doing the right thing. And that is the main purpose and role of a protector. And that's to protect the interests of beneficiaries.
So the trust process, it's a matter of working in harmony. The trustees, the executive manager, the beneficiaries, and, if appointed, the protector. So each appointee has specific duties and responsibilities that are detailed in the trust deed, with the objective of all working together in harmony towards achieving the objectives of the trust. That is the intent and purpose of the trust for the sole benefit of the beneficiaries. Now we come to a very important element, which is divided title. So the question is, what is it and why is it important? The fundamental feature of asset protection trusts is the division of full title, that's complete ownership of a particular item, property, into legal title, which is technical ownership, and equitable title, the beneficial right to possess and use the particular property. So when we talk about property, we're talking about the holdings within the trust. And all those holdings within the trust form the trust fund. Now, the trustees retain legal title to everything placed in the trust, and they're responsible for managing and administrating the trust in compliance with all the terms, conditions, and provisions as set out in the trust deed. The beneficiaries receive equitable title to use whatever is placed in the trust, which they don't own, provided that they comply with all the applicable terms, conditions, and provisions as set out in the trust deed or associated documents. What this means is, because of divided title, nobody can sue any holding in the trust that is not owned by you, because you have relinquished ownership. And that's the important thing.
So as Doug just mentioned, the Premier Trust, which is a private common law irrevocable trust, provides the ultimate in asset protection because of the divided title. It's a very important concept of these trusts. And because they're unregistered, it's very hard for people to work out the division of that title. So I'm just going to recap a few of the benefits of the Premier Trust. So it's written in simple to understand language. And that's so you and your trustees know what you're doing. It is just a matter of sitting down and working through it. And after you get through the first slog of learning the new language, things start to become more apparent to you. It's impenetrable. It is absolute asset protection because of the divided title. It's applicable in many countries of the world right now, and there's another little asterisk, but when we receive our funds, we believe will be in Nasara Gasara, which means we are going to worldwide constitutional common law. So we do have quite a few clients in certain countries that aren't really trust friendly at the moment, but they're preparing themselves for what's to come. Now, it provides anonymity, control, and privacy. So you don't own that amazing home that you're living in. You're a caretaker for a trust. And you're so lucky because you get a car and a phone and a computer too, so you can carry out your tasks as your role in the trust. So once again, you have use, not ownership. Now, we provide training and support because it just would not be fair to give you the opportunity to take back control of your life without showing you the way. And it's very cost effective, and we'll show you why in a minute.
So often we get asked, is a trust right for me? Well, everybody's personal circumstances are different, so we offer the following guidelines to assist you with your assessment. So the purpose and intent of the Premier Trust is the protection of your property, real property, and other assets, collectively known as holdings within the trust. So as an example, and this is purely an example, if your net worth is greater or likely to be greater than $50,000, then a trust is certainly worth considering. If your net worth is less than, say, $15,000, then maybe consider a trust at a later time, because the purpose and intent of the trust is to protect your assets. No one is going to sue you if you don't have any assets. So again, it's becoming a straw man or straw woman, without being politically orientated, that best fits what you want to achieve. Now, we talked about cost effective and value for money. So the values I'm about to put up are in United States dollars, which most people accept as the global currency. And because we are operating in a number of international countries, we operate with the US dollar. So a statutory discretionary trust, and some of you may be fully aware of these types of trusts. It has an establishment cost, a stamping cost, an annual audit and accounting cost, an annual filing fee, and an annual tax preparation fee. So after the initial cost, you've got an ongoing annual cost of $2,500. Now, there's an asterisk there. Some of them will be cheaper than that. Some of them will be more expensive than that. With the Premier Trust, the establishment cost is $3,000 and there are no other ongoing costs. So if we take the trust over a 25-year period, a discretionary trust would cost you $64,000. The Premier Trust would cost you $3,000. So that's a fairly substantial cost saving. So we said that the standard cost is $3,000 US. However, we've got a special price until midnight, 30th of June this year, at $2,000. Because what Trish and I want to do is to make the Premier Trust as affordable to as many people as we possibly can. Obviously, having a business, there's a lot of business expense that we incur. But we're willing to do that to help people establish their own trust.
So, unlike a few other places around, when you do come to us for a trust, we give you a complete and comprehensive trust deed. Plus, we also give you templates of the necessary schedules, minutes, certificates, anything that you might need for you and your trustees to be able to move forward. It's not usual, but we just feel that we need to get everything there for you. And as such, we've created a trust manual that's in simple to understand language. And it includes all the information that you need to know about your trust. It also has a comprehensive step-by-step guide and all the supporting documents. And currently, there are no additional fees. We don't know what that might look like after an event, but currently we don't charge you anything else for our Q&A sessions or for training or anything like that. So it is our commitment to provide you with the ability to gain a great deal of satisfaction by your active participation in developing the wealth of your trust, knowing that it's fully protected. So if you do want to find out more about that, before we go to Q&A, if you send an email to sagaciousassetprotection@protonmail.com and just say you'd like some information, I send you out an email that links you to the website, but it also gives you a guide to filling in the form, and that it's for your information if you decide you want to go ahead, or well and good. But the other thing that we realise is that $2,000 US is a big hit for some people. But one of the things we do know is that with the RV. Most of what we hear is that when you go along to redeem assets that you paid a little bit of money for probably going to get a lot of money for, if you turn up to that without common law trust, they will provide you with what they call a skeleton common law trust, which will probably have bankers for trustees. We believe it's revocable. And you have 90 days to flesh it out, whatever that happens to be. And I don't know where you would go to do that, but that's what it is. So we also offer, for a minimum of US $400, we will set up, we call it an abstract. We don't like to call it a skeleton. And the abstract is a summary of the full premier. So we can set up the abstract for you, and we provide you with a schedule and a gift letter so that you can put those assets into the protection of that abstract of the trust. And then at a later stage, when you finish paying off the trust, then you sign that trust at the same date that you created that abstract, because that abstract is the start date of your trust. So when you send through an email, we send through the details of that payment plan for you there as well. So that's enough about all of that. We are going to open up for question and answer, so that any of the questions that have tickled you along the way, you can have them answered while we're here. So keep in mind, this is a trust call. So we'll see how we go. So thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Trish.
Okay, we've got hands up. We'll go with the hands up first. You can unmute if you can't work out how to put your hands up. The chats go by a little bit too fast, so I'm probably not going to get to them, but I'll see how we go. Captain Marvel Jr., hello.
Yeah, hi, I've got a couple of questions. The settler, when it comes to the settler,
Yep.
and they become the executive manager, can they direct the trustees?
They can make suggestions to the trustees. So the role of the biggest protection of these trusts is that you relinquish, when you settle the trust, you relinquish control and authority to the trustees. Now, the benefit of that is that if the trust ever came under any sort of scrutiny, it can't be undone, because it's showing that you have set that trust up for the purpose of the beneficiaries, not as a place to stash money. So a lot of the things we say and do in this technical side of it is important. So now to answer your question, the executive manager looks after the day-to-day running of the trust, and you're tasked with taking investment opportunities or opportunities for structuring different trusts and moving money around, doing projects, doing all that sort of thing. And you would become part of the board of trustee meeting. You are always at that meeting, and you work in harmony with your trustees to make things happen. The only time a trustee is going to veto something that you might ask for is if they feel that it's not in the best interest of the trust fund or the beneficiaries. If it's going to benefit and move forward, then that's a great thing.
Mm-hmm. All right. So this Premier Trust can also be for a family use too, as well. I would take it.
It can.
And I could also be a beneficiary. Is that correct?
It's correct. Okay, so let's work out. I just want to run through the strongest trust structure. That's where you who have the assets become the settlor. Because you have nothing else to do, after you settle a trust, we take off that hat And we create, in the process of setting up the documents, we make you an executive manager. So we put on a new hat. We take off the executive manager's hat, and we can also put the hat on you of you being a beneficiary. So you have 3 roles within the trust. Okay, so the settlor then has a trustee, a first trustee not related to them at all by blood, marriage, adoption, or employment. Now, employment is that you're not their boss. You can work with someone, but the idea of that employment is that you say, well, you need to do this, and it's not a good thing to do, and I don't say yes, so you sack me. That's the only reason for that employment one. That also, you know, some people ask, well, if I'm doing humanitarian projects, I want my trustees to work in it. Absolutely fine. You're working with each other. You're not a boss relationship. Yes. So the second trustee can be related to you, but they don't have to be. Okay. So they're the ones. As far as beneficiaries are concerned, and this is the only time in history that we are going to suggest that people consider being a sole beneficiary or say 50-50 with their partner. The reason for that is when you create the trust, let's say you create a Premier Trust, and in here you put all of the assets that's going to an appointment. Most people are going to want to do humanitarian projects over here, or they might want to do this, or they might want to give money to somebody else. If you've got your 12 children as beneficiaries as well, you have to have a unanimous decision of all beneficiaries who are of the age of contract to be able to move money out of that trust, because you're actually taking money away from them as beneficiaries. So to begin with, if you're the sole beneficiary or 50-50 with your partner, you can make all the decisions you want, set up whatever structures you want, move it all out. At a later stage, you can put your children in, or you can structure other trusts for them. The reason being, a beneficiary has the right to see whatever is in that trust. So if they're in your main trust, they can see what's there. And if they're not aware of what's going on, you've got a lot of explaining to do. However, if you structure them into their own trust, they can only see what is in their own trust.
Yeah. So, one final question. How certain are you that they're going to be using English common law in the era of Nasara Jasara?
I'm pretty damn sure, but like everything else that's going on, we won't know until it happens. However, we know that English common law, American constitutional law, they all tie in together. There's a whole history on common law of how it's used, where it's also part of it, natural law, universal law. I'm very confident that this is what's going to be used moving forward, because as we said before, common law, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's English common law, it's common law. It sits above everything else.
Okay, thank you, Trish.
Okay. Hello, Leisha.
Hello there. I didn't have a question. I just wanted to probably update you on the cost of my statutory trust these days.
Right.
I have a business and I turn over under $1 million, so it's not a raging business. And I never bother my accountants, and they charge me $7,000 a year for the privilege of them doing my tax return after I do all the bookwork and bookkeeping. So in comparison to your trust, it's very different. Just wanted to update you with some current pricing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fix up that presentation.
Thank you.
Bizarre, Leisha.
It is. It's crazy. It was $3,000 a year 10 years ago they were charging. Yes, so they're taking a piece of us. All righty, thanks, Trish.
Thank you. Hello, Jules.
Hello. Okay, my question is, I'm a single girl and nobody knows that I'm doing any of this. So how do I go about getting trustees and la-da-da-da-da? So if you could fill me in a little bit on that, that would be fantastic, because I don't know where to start and I'd like to have this set up before, of course, I go to the redemption. Thanks, Trish.
Okay, right. Well, I have no crystal ball and I don't know how to make friends for you. However, there are quite a few people in your situation who have been working with each other to assist each other to be able to move forward with this in their particular group. So I don't know if you know people within your group, but maybe just reach out and see. Now, one of the benefits of using people who are in a similar situation to you is that they're not going to be covered in your money. Their eyes aren't going to fall onto the floor when they see what's in there. They're going to assist you as much as they possibly can, because you're going to assist them as much as you possibly can. Over time, we believe that people will be educated in this sort of thing. There are many common law groups who are coming together. We know that law firms are retraining in common law. So there will be opportunities outside of that area to be able to bring in trustees, so long as they don't register your trust. So I can't help you more than that, Jules. It's a difficult thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Trish. I mean, I've got friends, but I just don't want to pull them into this. And,
but they're not aware. Yeah.
No. Well, they're aware of what's going on, but not to the extent of what could take place at the redemption. So, okay, I'm so grateful for all of this information tonight. Thank you so much, guys. And yeah, I'll sort something out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Miranda.
Hello. First of all, first question, will we be able to have the recording of this?
And if you go to the website, the very first video on the website is a repeat of what we just did.
Right. Okay. I don't know. It's made a lot more sense, this one, to me. What I wanted to ask was this. Could you go through again how we open a bank account? Because it's something that's really worrying me.
Okay. I'm going to go through this. Don't open one. Okay. If you are not using your trust before an event, wait for the event and have an account set up on the new financial system. You can spend all of your time, and it's quite, we've been doing them for years. We've got accounts all over the place with clients with bank accounts, all sorts of things. But we won't be using our bank account to get this. Okay, when it's time for you to receive your money, you will receive it on a new financial system. On a new financial system, you have complete control of your money. You have an anonymity. You don't earn interest. You're not charged fees. It's not hackable. No government can see it. No bank can see it. It's completely separate to your bank account over here. When the time comes, you'll have an account set up here. You can send money to a bank to send to somebody else or to have an investment or something, but your funds will be on the Quantum Financial System. The reason for the trust, taking it off, is to protect you when you purchase real property or gold or silver or anything like that. When you take the money off the QFS, that's the reason for the trust. So there is no need to open a bank account unless you're going to use the trust before the event comes along. We also don't know, because we're going to the constitutional or common law, whether you need an EIN number, an ABN number, or other tax number for opening a trust account, which you do need to open a bank account currently. That, although no harm done, the less that's out there, the better.
No, that's fine. And I've understood that we don't open one now because I don't have anything of value at the moment. But it's niggling me because it seems like the only barrier I've got to go through at some point is to know how to do it.
Okay, I think it's a great question, Miranda, and Doug's got something to say.
Okay, there are two scenarios. One is you don't need a bank account. The other is, why would you need a bank account right now? And, you know, we had somebody say a little while ago about their business. You might have $1 million in assets in your own name right now. Some of that may very well be in cash. To protect it, you need to put it into a trust. So the simple solution, if you need to protect your financial assets, then opening a bank account is not difficult. So again, it depends, as we said at the outset, everybody's personal circumstances are a little bit different. Get an ABN, go to the bank, produce the documents that we provide you, open a bank account in the name of the trust. That's a summary of what happens.
It's not hard, but I think we're so close that it would be a waste to walk in as a retail customer, have everything sent everywhere, and then quite literally your money won't be going into that account. It will be going into a new financial system, and it may be, you may be able to link to it from that bank account, but still your trust deed and things is in a retail sector. So if you can wait, Miranda, and everybody else who has the same question, I think that's something to consider. Okay,
no, that's absolutely fine for me now, because I say I have nothing of value to put into my account. But when the time comes, Trish, after the event, will you be able to then, can we ask you for the advice of what to do at that time?
We will be here, yeah, because any NDA that you're under will be related to the assets that you are going to need your trust for. That doesn't negate you from being able to speak about a trust or creating humanitarian projects or any of those things.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed.
You're very welcome. Wolverine. Hola.
Sorry, I just might have something wrong with the button here. Yeah, look, a lot of people are asking questions about the QFS, and I noticed actually here as well. You just want to brush onto that subject, saying that if you don't need a trust because you have the QFS is secured enough as it is, right? Then there's a lot of BS and all this. Can you just let these people know so they can get the right information instead of making a drama out of it? I appreciate if you can actually let them know what happens. Why do you need a trust? And people saying you don't need it because you're under the QFS.
Okay, and It's kind of valid, but it's kind of not, because the QFS is a financial system. So to protect your money, let's just think about this current world, not the new world. To protect your money, supposedly, you put it in a bank. I've got a bit of a smile on my face there. But you don't sleep in the bank. You go down the road to your house to sleep in it. So the QFS has your money in it. And then you take the money off the QFS to purchase a home. Now, the home could burn down, or somebody could trip on the pavement or do something. This is where you need the protection. Whatever is not on the QFS is open for some sort of scrutiny, or it could cause harm. So having the trust is absolutely essential. So if you had all of the money on the QFS and then you bought the home in your own name, you can be sued for that because you have full title. Okay, you have legal title and you have equitable title of that property. In the trust, the trustees have legal title and the beneficiaries have equitable title. So, and it's unregistered, so people aren't going to know that to try and sue the trust, they would have to know who the beneficiaries are. They don't know. They might know who the trustees are, but they can't link the two together. So even if they tried to sue the trust, they would be unsuccessful. So a trust gives you absolute protection that you can't have elsewhere. So whenever your money's on the QFS, it's safe. Whenever you take the money off to do something else, do it through a trust structure so you maintain your anonymity and the assets remain protected.
Thanks, Trish. Appreciate it.
Okay, all good. Craig and Trish, hello.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I just had to unmute. I had to switch it off. Trish had a question. You mentioned like the skeleton trust. Well, I'm calling it skeleton because that's the easiest one I could remember. We've already started work with you and it's in hold, as you probably, I don't know if you remember us, but anyway, some people might want to know a bit more about a skeleton trust as a cheaper option to be prepared, and just a bit more about how that works compared to going to a full trust.
Okay. Well, I'll call it the abstract because I don't like skeleton. Makes my hair stand up on end. An abstract is a summary of the full trust. The abstract is enough for you to put assets in that you're taking to an appointment, and that's it. That's all it can do. You can't open up a bank account. You can't buy assets. You can't do anything other than protect those assets that you bought in your own name. You gift them into the trust so that they are now owned by the trust. And when you go to the appointment, the assets are put into a trust account. However, we believe that you put everything into the trust, but you take along a piece of paper that says, I need 1.5 million for my mortgage, I need 300,000 for this, I need this amount of money for this, and they will write out checks to pay off all of those things so you can clear up your outside life and then you can operate within the trust. So once you get the account set up at the appointment, we believe that you won't have access to it. It'll be funded, but you can't access it. That's why that private amount is important to you. But then if you have one of our abstracts, then you just send us the remainder of the funds that will complete the payment for that Premier. And when we create the abstract, we also create the Premier Trust at the same time. So when you send your proof of transfer and just say, I'm ready to collect my trust, we can flick you the trust you can take that along to the next appointment that they're set up with you. And using the documents that we show you, you show them those documents so that they can complete their side of the paperwork. They unlock your account and you're off and racing.
Thank you very much. And I just want to say a quick hi to Wolvie. I've followed you for a long time and I've never had the chance to say hello. So I just wanted to thank you for everything.
Thanks, mate. Much appreciated.
Okay. Hello, Hugh.
Hi, everyone. I'm speaking to you from sunny South Africa. So I found this very interesting. So thank you very much for your input. I have one question, and that is with regards what Captain Marble Jr. was saying earlier. Would it be in order to have more than one trust?
Okay. Do you want to answer that one, Doug?
Sure. It depends on your personal circumstances, and everybody's going to be different. For some people, one trust will suit their particular needs. For other people, they might have big families, or they might have a significant value of property, real property, assets. They might want to use risk management by diversifying into other trusts. For example, with a subtrust, and we call it subtrust for no other reason than it's linked to a parent trust with a management account. It doesn't need a bank account to operate, and that might contain a house or property of some nature, motor vehicles or boats, that if you keep those items separate to your main trust, then it's a risk management tool. And everybody is different, so it depends. If you know what the options are, you can make the decision that's right for you. And we're not saying engage in buying a Premier Trust. What we're trying to do here tonight is explain to you what trusts are all about and how they work. And we can't give individual advice, but have a look at your circumstance. Draw a few things, we get differences of opinion. It doesn't make one right or one wrong. It's finding out what is best for you.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
One of the things we're seeing, or one of the things that most people on the call are probably thinking about as humanitarian projects. So trust structures are actually a huge subject, but in its simplest form, the first trust anybody ever has is the Premier Trust. That's the one you're going to put all of your assets into. That's the one that's going to have a huge amount of funding. The other one is a humanitarian charitable trust for those people who are doing humanitarian projects. Now, this one also has a bank account. That has a bank account. This has a bank account. That can be set up afterwards, but many people are setting up both. So when they go to the appointment, they say, please put my personal funds in the Premier Trust and please put the humanitarian funds in this one. You've got two accounts set up. And that way, everything you do here is your personal generational wealth. Everything here is humanitarian purposes.
Thank you. Well answered. Thank you so much, folks.
You're welcome. Thank you. Wolfie, did you have another one or you just... No, you're all good? Okay, Eugene. having trouble with his button. We'll come. There we go. There.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
I thought you had to unmute me. Trish, thank you for taking the question. Is the jurisdiction of this Premier Trust in Australia, or where is it set up?
There's a good one. There you go, Doug.
It's global. The trust is not necessarily domiciled in any particular country. However, it must have an address for the purpose of activity, such as buying property. They need to know the address of the trust. The address of the trust can be changed by the trustees in accordance with the provisions of the trust deed. Now, there are quite a few countries that are what we would call non-trust supportive. And we can't change the laws in relation to that. So again, where people are domiciled, it's important that they investigate what their legal system attitude is towards irrevocable common law trusts. A lot of places don't allow them within their country except under certain circumstances. But most of the Commonwealth countries, which are based on English law, both statutory and common, allow trusts. So again, you need to investigate. We don't have the facilities to investigate all the different countries. So we say, well, please investigate to make sure that the trust is applicable in your area of jurisdiction. Now, we've got somebody in a European country that is not trust, shall we say, sympathetic, that have set their trust up in another country, and that has been accepted by that country. So again, there's different laws around the world. So even though we would like to think that these trusts are available to everybody, no matter where you live, that we understand is not necessarily the case.
Yet.
Can it be set up in Australia or in any country or where do you set it up?
When we get the form from you, we prefer that you have the address that you're living in at the moment. However, it could be a virtual address because the trust is executed at an address. It's not domiciled at that address. So when Doug says that they are international, they are. So say I set my trust up in Australia, and then I decide that I'm going to go to Italy to live. Well, once I get an address in Italy, I can just have a meeting of the Board of Trustees and we change the address of the trust. So now I want to buy property in Italy. I can show them that there's an addendum to the trust to say that this is the address. And then I might go over to France and I want to buy something there. So I'll get an address in France and I'll show them the one in France. So I could have 50 an address in every country and just do what I want to do with that same trust.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. South Africa is not particularly trust friendly. They tried to clamp down on wasn't allowed.
Yeah.
It wasn't allowed, but currently, for example, the tax rate is 40% on trusts, and they're auditing trusts all the time at the moment.
Yes. Yeah. Keep in mind that it's not registered. Okay, these trusts, because it's not registered, you aren't opting in to any government entity, any system. So you're not opting into the tax system. Because these are common law, they sit above and they are seen, as Doug said, as a flow-through entity for taxation. So anything that goes into the trust or is purchased by the trust all tax is paid out there and the finished product comes into the trust. And then you can buy and sell and do whatever you want to within that trust. And no tax is paid while it's in the trust because the trust is not registered for taxation. But when you pay beneficiaries into their personal account or you send money to tradespeople or whatever it happens to be, if there is a taxable implication for that person who receives the money, then that person is liable for the taxation, not the trust. So even though there's...
Does that mean that the trust, any capital gains or anything made or profits made within the trust is not taxable here? Is that what it means?
That's what it means. So you actually retain your wealth and can move forward. These are the trusts that the very wealthy families of the world use and have used for centuries.
It's a different jurisdiction.
Right.
Okay. I will be in touch and we can probably take it further because there is other implications. I don't think I want to waste everybody's time. Thank you very much for all.
Thank you, Eugene.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Hello, John.
Hi, everybody. My question has sort of been answered because it's to do with translating a trust document. And I'm domiciled in France at the moment, so I would find it useful to have the document in France, in French, in case I need to use it to show some money or to get other people in this country interested in the idea, because I think it would benefit them a tremendous amount. I've got neighbors who are really interested in creating a trust, and they're kind of afraid of it at the moment. But if they had all this information in their own language, that would be a really beneficial step for them to come on board. So that's where I am with it at the moment. So Thank you so much for what you've explained today. It's been so valuable.
You're welcome. And Doug, do you want to address the part of the trust deed on translating the trust?
Yes, the trust can be translated into any language. However, English prevails where there is a dispute or conflict as to a meaning of the word. And often we understand that translations don't necessarily become an exact translation of what the intent and purpose is. So that's the proviso within the trust deed.
Okay. Yes, so it can be done. And John, I know what you're saying. At the moment, we can only educate in English unless it's the written word that can be translated. But once again, if there's any misinterpretation, it goes back to the English translation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Cheryl. No, you're muted.
Unmute. Really, I don't have a question. I'm just so grateful, Trish, to you and Doug and Wolvie in different areas for all the help. And I mean, it's been a learning journey, a learning curve like you wouldn't believe, but I always get something out of every presentation. But it's your heart. I feel in your heart. I always say it's the heart attitude that counts, and it comes through loud and clear, and I'm so grateful. Thank you.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. Oh, thank you. Before we go further, I've just seen that Yaz is on here. Thank you so much, Yaz. I can see you answering questions in there. Greatly appreciated. As I said at the beginning, Doug and I are Sagacious Asset Protection, but we've got some fabulous people behind us, and Yaz is one of them. And she's just come in and doing all this stuff in the background. So perfect. Thank you. See like an eagle.
Yeah, it's Vicky from South Africa.
Hello, Vicky.
I loved your presentation. For the first time, I actually understand what a trust is. We have one. We have care homes. We have a children's home, and that's all wonderful. Our business contains all the homes for the care homes, for the NPO. But we also have own children and adopted children. And now if they all become beneficiaries of the same trust, you said they have to have insight into all the workings of the trust. So is it not going to be better to have the children separated from the main trust?
Okay, let's have a look at that, because I'm going to tell you how I've set up my structure. Okay, so we have a trust that we've got our other trust over here, but we've got the trust that the mother load's going in, for want of a better description. I won't tell you who the beneficiaries are, but there's a sole beneficiary, or it might be a couple of beneficiaries, but no children. There are no children in here because they are not aware of what's going on. But what we do underneath this trust is we create sub-trusts for each of the children and make them a sole beneficiary of that trust, whether they're married or not. They are the sole beneficiary. I don't put the grandkids in. And here's why. This trust here, the first thing we do is fill in a deed of transfer of beneficial units to designated heirs. And that's where we list all the children. Because when we go and they start fighting and squabbling, hopefully they've learned a few things in that process and they can get on and move it, because when they see what's in there, their eyes will probably fall out of their head. So by having them as a sole beneficiary of each of their trusts, now that would be each of those trusts will purchase a property, a real property for them to live in. If they have a home already, it would be for them to lease. They can lease that property out, but each child will be given the same amount of money. Doesn't matter what they've done in their private life. If they're rich, they get the same. If they're poor, they get the same. There's no compensation. It's just the same across the board. Now, some of them might be financially competent, but I'm still going to do sub-trusts to begin with until there's a training and a learning process that happens. When they are financially competent or engaged in the trusts, then I create another premier trust for them and remove the management agreement from my trust to that sub-trust, and then create a management agreement from that sub-trust to their premier, and they go away and do their own thing. With each of their trusts, because they're the sole beneficiary, they will fill in a deed of transfer of beneficial units to designated heirs, and they will leave it to their children. Now, I said at the beginning that I wouldn't be putting their partners into that trust. Okay. However, there should be enough funds to create a trust for the partner if the partner's been around for a long time. And that partner can have one that might have a residential property, or it might have the beach house or something. Because if you exclude a partner, they're going to feel left out. They're going to feel that they're doing in this relationship for no benefit, because it's only the beneficiary who benefits from the trust, although they can both live in that house. But if they were to ever divorce, because my child does not own the assets of that trust, the trust owns the assets of that trust, whatever assets are in that trust cannot form part of the settlement. So the house can't be taken. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, it does perfectly. But you know, when you get to 97 children, it becomes quite a it becomes quite heavy, and especially with this new blessing, and we're thinking of 3,000 extra care homes. It becomes really heavy. But yes, you've explained it very well. So the same trust can have sub-trusts.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. You've answered my question. Thank you to you
Lovely.
and Craig and Lucy. Be blessed.
Thank you, Vicky. Okay. Miranda, hello.
Hello again. When you have, you were saying about having a meeting of trustees to say something. Now, I've got my two non-family trustees, one's in France and the other one's in Australia. And so what would you use? Because Zoom calls, evidently Zoom, what?
Just use one of these. You haven't got a choice. You have to use something. However, let me just say, by the time this comes around, we've probably got new internet as well. We probably won't be tracked. It'll all be on a quantum system. So I wouldn't stress too much. You're going to have to use what's available to us at the time. And there's no point getting stressed out by all of these things. So unless you can meet in person, and you know what, you probably have enough money to just all meet on the Riviera and have a bit of a holiday and a trust meeting. So just see how you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
You talked about a trust can have a digital address. What exactly?
Yes. It's a virtual address. So there are companies that you can pay them to use their address, and they will collect your mail for you, and they can either send it out to you or you can walk in and pick it up. So it's not going to your home address.
Okay. All right. I suppose one has to be very careful who you choose to do that.
Well, I think we all have to be cautious and tread lightly as we move forward.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Breaking Limits. Sounds like fun. Oh, a bit hard to hear you. You're breaking up, I'm sorry. Can you get closer to the phone or something? No, can't hear you. The internet's not very good. So the internet's not very good. Maybe take off your camera and just ask the question and see if we can hear you then.
Okay.
Okay, try again.
All right. My question that I have is because of my network of what you were saying, and my question is this. I just want to do a hypothetical. If I had to go, for example, my wife and I, we want to start something, a lot of these projects here in the Okavango. Now, hypothetically speaking, we're on the now, money in that account or on that ledger. I just want to understand this properly and what is the example if the property can put up a center.
Do you know what? I'm only getting sort of one of every second word. And I'm so sorry because I think it's a good question, but I can't get the whole thing. Maybe you could type it in chat or send me an email, but you're breaking up too much to be able to get it, to be able to answer you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. All right. Well, we're almost heading to the 1.5 hours. So I think Yaz has done a fabulous job in chat answering everyone. Does anyone else have a last minute thing before we head off for tonight? No? All good. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, so much for joining us. And if you send through an email to the Sagacious Asset Protection at protonmail.com and just ask for information, we'll send that through to you and you can start your journey of learning. Amir, you've just snuck in at the very last. Have you got a question?
I just would like to say thank you to all of you, Trish, Doug, and Wolverine, which I'm following from Little Slovakia. Love you all.
Love you all too.
High
all
frequency and love, heart-centered. Thank you for all.
Okay.
Thanks,
Trish.
Thank
you. Okay. See you, Bill. Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Recording stop.